Right, good evening ladies and gentlemen, Antony Carpen here sitting at the top of the hill. We are here on Castle Hill, lovely evening with all of those grey clouds actually heading away, and we've got a beautiful sunset over there. The reason why I've come to the top of the hill is really to kickstart a new mini filming project on this book. It's called Cambridge, The Shaping of the City, and is by a former Cambridge teacher, Peter Bryan, and it's published by the local bookseller G. David, and it's going for a bargain price of £7. The reason why the book for me is so important is because it gives the story of the urban expansion of our city. The context of all of this is the Greater Cambridge City deal and the devolution plans that are happening over the next year or so, and also in a much wider context, the ever-expanding size of the city. What makes the book really interesting for me really comes back to a point that local Cambridge historian Alan Brigham made at the event at Great St Mary's Church called Supersize Cambridge. Now, what he said was the level of growth that the city is currently growing through is not unprecedented, and when we look at the book itself, the growth in, let's say, the growth of the university city in the 19th century, when we look at the population around the time of 1800, the population I think was only about 9,000. And if we look at the population 100 years later, it's about 90,000. So that's a huge growth in the city's population. And don't quote me on those figures because I may need to come back and fact check them. The other book I want to reference, Matt, there are 4 books I want to reference in all of this. The second book is this one, and I'm going to embarrass Councillor Ashley Walsh and local historian Richard Johnson on this one. Camaraderie, 100 Years of the Cambridge Labour Party. Now, you might think this is a, pro-party political tone, but it's not. It actually reads as a social history of Cambridge. The reason why, apart from both Richard and Ashley being very, very good writers, is they've actually gone to the archives, one of which is behind you, and I'll just point the camera that way, and what you can see there in very, very poor light is Shire Hall. Now, Shire Hall used to be on the site of the old castle in the old prison, and it's currently the resting place of the county archives, which unfortunately are in the process of being moved to Ely because the conditions that the archives are currently being kept in are not up to scratch, and nobody's got any money to improve them because of local government cuts from Whitehall. Ooh, political point there. The other book that I want to reference, or the third book, is this one. This is Memory Lane, Cambridge, by another local historian, Mike Petty, MBE. Now, Mike is another one of these very passionate local historians who just knows the story of our city inside out. Now, many a book, many a documentary has been made about Cambridge University, but very little has been written, very little has been made into film about the history of Cambridge, the borough, when you compare the two. The final piece I want to reference is this book in 1976 called Cambridge That Never Was by F.A. Reeve. It's actually a very small publication from 1976, and basically what it basically says on the cover, it basically covers much of the planned developments of the city that were never built. And for me, there are a number of very interesting and important plans that came about that unfortunately never came to fruition. One of which was a big theatre up near where Bridge Street currently is. And if we look at what Mr. Reeve says in his book, because for me, this is fascinating. It was not until 1963 that Cambridge obtained an indoor swimming pool. But there have been several earlier schemes to provide one. So the 1963 pool, I think that he's talking about, I think, is Parkside, if I recall correctly. In 1857, excuse me, sorry about the wind. In 1857, the New Music Hall and Public Rooms Company, Cambridge Limited, supported by some of the college masters and leading citizens of the town and county, formed to carry out an ambitious scheme. The company secured the site of the Hoop Hotel in Bridge Street, near the corner of Jesus Lane, and prepared plans for a large building. Now, this building is as such. The scheme envisaged a concert hall for about 2,000 persons, with an organ and a stage for orchestras. On the first floor above, a second-class swimming bath to be entered from Park Street, and a first-class bath to have a glazed arcade 30 feet long and a grand staircase leading to a promenade with supper, refreshment and card rooms. Wouldn't that have been wonderful to have had that built in Cambridge? But unfortunately, although many people welcomed the proposals, there was some opposition, and in May 1858 it was announced that the scheme had been abandoned. What a tragedy. So, to summarise, we've got the urban expansion of the city, we've got the social expansion of the city over the past 100 years, we've got Cambridge that could have been but never was, and we've got Cambridge that was but now not is, or is no longer here. And then, I guess at the end of it, what I'm going to look at are the plans, the current plans for the expansion of Cambridge and the expansion of the infrastructure as well that are being pushed through the city deal. Interestingly, tonight there is a public meeting going on for the residents of Histon Road to talk about the plans there to cut down lots of trees and to put in a wider bus lane. As you can imagine, incredibly controversial with local residents. There is a similar meeting tomorrow night for the residents of Milton Road. But essentially, when it comes to the making of all of this, with the book itself by Mr. Bryan, I'm going to be looking at, if I can say, Roman, Saxon and Norman Cambridge. Obviously, I need to look at Cambridge University, but I'm not going to do it in the level of detail that everybody else has done it. I'm just going to look at it in terms of the relationship between the secular civic authorities, the church authorities and the university authorities, including looking at how the university survived Henry VIII. I'm then going to look at the industrialisation of Cambridge, because beautiful as Cambridge looks from here, we do have a very big industrial past. It's just a lot of it has been built over. And then finally, I'm going to be looking at the post-war and the destruction of what to me are some beautiful buildings, and then finally looking at the expansion of the city that's currently happening and how it relates to what happened in the past and whether there are any lessons to be learnt. So yeah, watch this space, and thank you for listening.